I cannot make that commitment. Well, I can tell you what I would do as president. When I'm sworn into office come January of 2009, if there are, in fact, as General Petraeus suggests, 100,000 American troops on the ground in Iraq, I will immediately draw down 40 to 50,000 troops. And over the course of the next several months, continue to bring our combat troops out of Iraq until all of our combat troops are, in fact, out of Iraq. I think the problem is, and it's what you've just heard discussed, is we will maintain an embassy in Baghdad. That embassy has to be protected. We will probably have humanitarian workers in Iraq. Those humanitarian workers have to be protected. I think somewhere in the neighborhood of a brigade of troops will be necessary to accomplish that, 3,500 to 5,000 troops. But I do say, I want to add to things I just heard, I think that it's true that everyone up here wants to take a responsible course to end the war in Iraq. There are, however, differences between us, and those differences need to be made aware. Good people have differences about this issue. For example, I heard Senator Clinton say on Sunday that she wants to continue combat missions in Iraq. To me, that's a continuation of the war. I do not think we should continue combat missions in Iraq. And when I'm on a stage with the Republican nominee, come the fall of 2008, I'm going to make it clear that I'm for ending the war. And the debate will be between a Democrat who wants to bring the war to an end, get all American combat troops out of Iraq, and a Republican who wants to continue the war.
Well, Tim, could I just clarify that, I said there may be a continuing counterterrorism mission, which, if it still exists, will be aimed at al-Qaeda in Iraq. It may require combat, special operations forces, or some other form of that, but the vast majority of our combat troops should be out.
But can I just say that my only point is, I don't have any doubt that Senator Clinton wants to take a responsible course. There is a difference, however, in how we would go about this. And I think Democratic primary voters are entitled to know that difference. And the difference is really very simple. I would have our combat troops out of Iraq over a period of several months, and I would not continue combat missions in Iraq. Combat missions mean that the war is continuing. I believe this war needs to be brought to an end.
Would you send combat troops back in if there was genocide?
I believe that America, along with the rest of the world, would have a responsibility to respond to genocide. It's not something we should do alone. In fact, if we do it alone, it could be counterproductive. In fact, if I can go one step further beyond what you just asked, I think the President of the United States and I as President would have a responsibility as we begin to bring our combat troops out of Iraq to prepare for two possibilities. One is the possibility that the worst possibility, which is that genocide breaks out, Shia try to systematically eliminate the Sunni. I think we need to be preparing for that with the international community now, not waiting. And second, the possibility that this war starts to spill outside the borders of Iraq. And that's a very difficult thing to contain, because we know historically that it's difficult to contain civil war.
Governor Richardson, you have said that you will bring home all troops within a year. You've heard your three other opponents say they can't do it in 4 years. How can you do it in 1 year?
Well, I have a fundamental difference with Senator Obama, Senator Edwards, and Senator Clinton. Here's my position. Their position basically is changing the mission. My position in bringing all troops out of Iraq is to end the war. The American people want us to end this war. Our kids are dying the bloodiest last 3 months. And my position is this, that you cannot start the reconciliation of Iraq, a political settlement, an all-Muslim peacekeeping force to deal with security and boundaries and possibly this issue of a separation, which is a plan that I do believe makes sense, until we get all our troops out, because they have become targets. And I also disagree with Senator Clinton. I don't believe the Congress has done enough to end this war.
But Governor, my question is, how are you going to do this in 1 year?
We have been able to move our troops within 3 months, 240,000 in and out of Iraq through Kuwait. This is what I would do. I would bring them out through roads, through Kuwait, and through Turkey. It would take persuading Turkey. The issue is light equipment. I would leave some of the light equipment behind. But I believe what is fundamental here is that leaving any troop behind will prevent us from moving forward to secure some kind of stability in the region. I would invite Iran, I would invite Syria, and I would make sure that the entire issue is also tied to stability in the Israeli-Palestinian issue. And you cannot deal with the Iraq issue alone. You have to deal with it with the entire region.
Senator Dodd, you've heard this discussion. Where do you come down?
Well, Tim, the question is not just how do you bring the troops out, but why are we there? As President of the United States, your first responsibility is to guarantee the safety and security of the American people. And so the question you must ask yourself as President, is the continuation of our military presence enhancing that goal? I happen to believe very strongly that this policy of ours, militarily involvement in Iraq, is counterproductive. We're less safe, less secure, more vulnerable, and more isolated today as a result of the policy. So I believe that we ought to begin that process of redeployment here. I would simultaneously engage in the kind of robust diplomacy that's been totally missing from this administration to enhance our own interests in the region as well as to provide some additional security from Iraq. You can do this, Tim. Practically can be done. By military planners can tell you can move a brigade to a brigade and a half, maybe even two a month out of Iraq. So the time frame we're talking about is critical. But Congress has an obligation here. It's not enough that we just draft timetables. The Constitution gives the Congress of the United States a unique power, and that is the power of the purse. As long as we continue drafting these lengthy resolutions and amendments here, talking about timelines and dates, we're not getting to the fundamental power that exists in the Congress.